asking the questions that matter, lighting the fire to scatter, dancing with thoughts that flatter, building the dreams we chase after. Whispers are turning to thunder, echoes are pulling us under, fascism spark in the night, guiding us into the light, exercising the mind so bright, particles they fly.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for a special episode of Tazisms as we get caught up on the latest updates regarding the Epstein Maxwell files and all of the breakaway cases that have now attached themselves to it. Let's jump right into it. Oops. There we go. I did not realize that would be gotten through the commercial part. My apologies. We will skedaddle through this really quickly. We'll get to the nitty gritty of things. Okay. Oops.
Against certain officials in the United States of sexual misconduct, or is it a completely different matter altogether?
I think it will be going further down the line. They will be looking into sexual misconduct, but right now they're doing what I like to call the Al Capone offense. You know, Al Capone went down for tax evasion. He did not go down for the multiple brutal murders he committed. So right now, I think they're going after exactly what Andrew did as a trade envoy.
That wouldn't be an Al Capone method. They went after Al Capone for what they went after Al Capone for because they couldn't get anything else to stick. Andrew broke the law on multiple levels. So let's not conflate these things.
During his time in 2001 to 2011, and because the emails are so clear, forwarding confidential information to Epstein and several other people about his trips to China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Vietnam, and also discussing investment opportunities in Afghanistan, where the British
He wasn't simply talking about like, oh, I took this trip here, took this trip there. He was giving inside trader information. That is what's clear in the emails. Let's step away from downplaying what these people were doing. Let's stop doing that. Let's stop acting as if these were just friends exchanging vacation photos and stories. And oh, in the midst of conversation, they may have said one or two things here. Epstein was not qualified to be a substitute teacher, let alone a financier. So let's continue.
Government was trying to rebuild Helmand province. He also then got his assistant, Amanda Thirsk, to get the details of Iceland's economic distress and forwarded those as well. It's pretty serious. It's, you know, the last guy who went down 600 some years ago was down for treason, and a lot of people are calling this treasonous as well.
Because it is. It is treasonous. Like that's exactly what it is. I do know what the obsession is in protecting white men. Especially as much as people are so proud of the United States sending that Dear John letter, aka the Declaration of Independence, going, we're not going to have aristocracy here. We are quick to call somebody, the United States royalty or whatever. This is why when people talk about the Kennedy administration, they still refer to the White House as Camelot. We have to stop. We really have to stop. Now let's also get into this. The article that the video was attached to, coming from Still News Nation. Ex-Prince Andrew is facing exile or prison, as he should face both. No matter what happens next, former Prince Andrew's life in England as he knows it is effectively over. It's the blunt assessment of royal biographer Andrew Lowney, and the two scenarios he lays out are both stunning in their own right: prison or permanent exile. Why are they stunning? Because they're attached to a white person? I'm legitimately asking, why is this stunning? Given the multitude of crimes that Andrew is accused of committing, why is this stunning? The word choices are intentional. The prison scenario. If Andrew is charged and convicted of misconduct in public office, the consequences could be staggering. Under UK law, misconduct in public office carries a potential life sentence, and Lowney isn't dismissing the possibility lightly. But let's also go further than this, because there's, like I said, there's layers. There's multiple cases that could come out of this in regards to Andrew. Either way, he's going to prison. He's going to prison. And then the Andrew in exile scenario. But what if Andrew avoids charges entirely? What if he's investigated and ultimately let off? Then we know that something is afoot, but let's continue. The outcome, according to Lowney, wouldn't look much better. Rather than allowing Andrew to quietly resume life on the royal estate, the family would almost certainly push him out of the country altogether, likely to the Middle East, far from the British press and far from the palace gates. Would he go to the Middle East? Probably not. Probably come on over here to the United States. We have to think. And we have to be honest about a multitude of things. Look what they did regarding, and I'm talking about the royal family and the royal family sycophants in England. What they allowed their racism to do to Harry and Meghan. There's no way that they would be able to still hobnob and show any type of care, concern, or camaraderie with raggedy ass Andy. And that means that there would be some ricochets. There would be some residual you got to go. The original Fergie Ferg. You get to go too. And she has her own set of allegations and her own set of communique with Epstein. So. But there's it never ceases to amaze me. King Charles has drawn his line in the sand. He's stating that, hey, I know I don't have the best track record. I know that I'm a philanderer, but the people I was philandering with were of age for the most part, because we ain't forgot about his dealings with Princess Diana, when they met, when they got engaged, and the age gap. Okay. Just for him to not even try to be faithful. But to see people now scrambling in the British press and certain circles trying to lay cover for Andrew and make it seem like, oh my goodness, is it really that bad? It's historic. It's history making. Like trying to put the focus on any and everything except for the gravity of what he's been accused of doing. Don't you know? Tale as old as time. Jeffrey Epstein allegedly grew toxic plants in nursery, according to emails. The latest file dump of the Jeffrey Epstein files has suggested that the disgraced financier was allegedly growing toxic plants in his nursery. Emails linked to Epstein between 2014 and 2015 show him referencing trumpet plants, and articles on scopolamine, a psychoactive drug known for causing suggestibility and memory loss. The drug doesn't appear on toxicology reports. Quick side note. Marijuana was discussed in these files, um, as to why marijuana was not used. It was deduced that marijuana causes people to question things more and not really go along to get along, whereas alcohol causes people to go along to get along. A message from 2015 that appears to be forwarded from a person named Antoine Verglas to Epstein has a subject line: Scopolamine, powerful drug growing in the forest of Colombia that eliminates free will. Yeah, that's not scary at all. A third email in 2022, described as a victim impact statement, shows an individual known as Joseph Manzaro recalling an incident from December 2014 in which he claims he was drugged with scopolamine. At this time, when Manzaro is and his link I'm sorry, at this time, who Manzaro is and his link to Epstein are unclear. A trumpet plant is a common name for various species of trumpet shaped flowers. The plants are highly fragrant at night and can be extremely toxic if eaten. You know, the more we go through these files and the more we learn about Epstein, his desire to be around scientists and just the STEM world as a whole gets curiouser and curiouser and curiouser by the moment. It really, really does. Uh, let's see. Scopolamine, also known as devil's breath, is often described as sending users into a dissociative state and causing hallucinations. In extreme cases, the drug can make people become submissive and lose their memories. It is sometimes, and this is why certain things should not be in the public sphere. And this is why most cases and prosecutions, let's go for the sake of transparency. And we are diving into this case during a comprehension and literacy epidemic. So it is sometimes used to treat nausea and motion sickness, but is now used recreationally. In large doses, the drug can be lethal. According to the UK addiction treatment centers, some nations, such as Colombia, use the drug with sinister intent. Several reports have claimed that users were coerced into carrying out depraved acts after being spiked with the drug. Local, me- Local media has described the effects of the drug as being similar to mind control, where the user is able to be manipulated. Because of this, the toxin is also used as a date rape drug. Epstein never formally named the drug during the emails, but received the aforementioned email with an article discussing the effects of scopolamine. A release of orders associated with Epstein's Amazon account has also revealed that the account bought a jasmine night blooming plant in May of 2019. According to the Amazon listing, the plant blooms repeatedly when the weather turns warm, so gardens in cool climates will enjoy flowers during the summer, while those in warmer areas can look forward to blooms from spring to fall. The plant has been reported to be toxic. However, this hasn't been well documented. Ingesting the plant can cause an increase in temperature, rapid pulse, increased salivation, and gastritis, according to the Queensland Poison Information Center. The plant is in the nightshade family, which includes many members that contain alkaloids, some of which are highly toxic. It comes in the latest batch of files, which Attorney General Pam Bondi says have now all been released. Over 300 high profile names were listed in the docs, with Bondi claiming that no one was shielded from public scrutiny to spare them embarrassment. According to the Department of Justice, figures more than 3.5 million pages were ultimately released. Oh, you grow those in your yard. Oh, my trumpet tree was 10 feet tall last year. Jesus. Oh, so they grow like a tree. Okay. Ah, okay. Okay. Wondering how they grew. Now, we couldn't have a tree like that here because I think Miss Mama's, the pooch, would get into it and that would just be disastrous. Disastrous on so many levels. Now, smell like juicy fruit gum at night. Ooh, it's been a while since I've smelled juicy fruit gum, but boy, did that unlock a core memory there. Epstein files test Teflon Don. Why are we calling him Teflon Don when he's never gotten away with anything? Please tell me where this rumor, this lie, this assertion came from that things just bounce off of Trump and he doesn't face any accountability. If he didn't face any accountability, he wouldn't consistently lose in court. He wouldn't consistently be sued. He wouldn't consistently be racking up indictments and warrants, even on the international level, and he wouldn't have racked up 34 convictions. He wouldn't have ran this past time. He would not have joined the race to POTUS Mountain to avoid further convictions because he was indicted multiple times in multiple jurisdictions. So please, someone explain to me why we're out here calling him Teflon Don. He's gotten away with nothing. But I feel like the same people that would refer to him as Teflon Don call David Blaine a magician. If you know, you know. But let's get into it. Around the world, there have been resignations of top government officials, politicians, and lawyers, and new law enforcement investigations launched. Yet, at the White House, officials tied to Jeffrey Epstein are not resulting in a mass exodus, seemingly demonstrating the Trump administration's ability to repel even the most harsh public scrutiny, the New York Times reports. Is that what that indicates? Or does it indicate that the general public gives up too easy? And have we forgotten how much of a fight is still taking place on Capitol Hill? Are we losing sight of how many primaries are being lost for the GOP because of their stance on this? Are we supposed to ignore the decreasing polling numbers for the GOP? So we're supposed to ignore all of that to make it seem like Trump and the Republican Party are sitting pretty and nobody's questioning anything. There's no accountability coming their way. There's no scrutiny. There's no nothing. Just people don't forgot about it and moved on. And they're just like, yes, Queen, yes, Trump is doing such a great job. That's what we're supposed to do. Why do we keep putting out these narratives? This is why MAGA and Trump think that they're above the law and they keep trying to up the ante. Like we're giving them the delusions. We're talking about them being in a cult, but we're giving them the hallucinations. Occasionally dubbed Teflon Don for his ability to withstand scandal. Since when? President Trump Sr. was a longtime associate of Epstein and is mentioned thousands of times across the files, while Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is mentioned more than 250 times. Here's the thing. The more I dig into this and more that I think back to their interactions and everything, it's very much so a Lenny and George situation. So was Trump an associate or was Trump trying to become an associate? Because it doesn't seem like Trump had the net worth for Epstein to really pay him too much of attention And Trump didn't have any connections that were worth anything for Epstein. And by the time Trump got to a position, aka elected president, Epstein was determined to take him down. Other Trump officials also appear in the records, including Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Medicare Chief Mehmet Oz. I have nothing to hide. I've been exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, Trump said this week per NDTV. Exonerated by who? Trust me, bro. Lutnick has admitted visiting Epstein's private island in 2012, 4 years after Epstein's conviction in a sex case involving a minor, and 7 years after Lutnick previously claimed to have cut ties with him. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said last week that Lutnick remains a very important member of Trump's team amid bipartisan calls for his resignation. So how are they avoiding scandal if they're getting calls for his resignation? People pushing towards his resignation and looking to just impeach him. So once again, how is this the Teflon Don administration? I think the only one that's Teflon in this administration is Susie Wiles. The stance contrasts sharply with the fallout beyond Washington. Hyatt heir Thomas Pritzker exited his executive chairman role. Goldman Sachs general counsel Catherine Rundler departed, and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's top aide resigned over the move to recommend Peter Mandelson, a former pal of Epstein, as ambassador to the US. The contrast shows there's more accountability to the public with a parliamentary system like Britain's. Richard Painter, former chief ethics lawyer to President George W. Bush, tells NPR. No, the United States needs to stop being bitches. I've said it before, I'm going to keep saying it until it seeps into your inner core. You all are able to mobilize and get people canceled, get people shut down, get people fired, close down businesses when you can't get your way. The moment that you don't get the discount that you feel that you should get, or somebody didn't smile wide enough, or they didn't salt your fries enough, you can put together a campaign and you'll sit there and scream and holler about whose salary you pay, whose bill, blah, 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 blah. But the people who you actually do pay their salaries, you act like some bitches when they come around. I said what I said. Don't like it, change it. But for the love of all things holy and everything in between, stop calling him Teflon Don, because he's not. Stop acting as if he has been above accountability. He's not. How are you able to joke about somebody having convictions and simply running for office to avoid prison time and being indicted in multiple countries and multiple jurisdictions in this country? How is that avoiding accountability? How is that getting away with anything? Even before he got in politics, he was slapped with Supreme Court decisions that did not go in his favor. He's not a winner. He is a loser, and he knows it. Y'all really have to stop giving this man so much credit. At times, y'all are worse than MAGA. Like, at least MAGA knows that they're lying to themselves and everybody else. Y'all actually believe the bullshit. Y'all out here getting frustrated over a fairy tale you concocted and forgot you concocted it. Y'all out here giving Trump stats like he's in the NBA. Oh, child. Anyway, police call for witnesses after human trafficking claims appear in Epstein files. British police have urged people with information to come forward about claims of human trafficking and sexual assault from the 1990s, which appeared in the Epstein files. Surrey police said the allegations set out in a redacted report released by the U.S. Department of Justice in December allegedly took place in Virginia waters between 1994 and 1996. The force's call for witnesses comes after an FBI report from July 2020 which appears in the files in which somebody alleged they were drugged at night and driven to pedophile ring parties in the mid 1990s. The same person who claims to have been hit by a blue car driven by Prince Andrew, in which they allegedly suffered injuries to their ribs, hip, and leg. The force said they have found no evidence of allegations being reported to them after reviewing their systems. In the same document, the woman who alleged sexual abuse against Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. The woman claims she was restrained on a table and tortured with electrical shocks by Maxwell while the former prince and other men watched on. I can absolutely believe that because that bitch is crazy. That bitch is crazy. And here's the thing, like I said earlier at the closing of the task fact, this is an international case. And Congress has done a good job of recalling and thinking about people that they can interview and who they can bring in. But it's important for you to remind them and make them aware of people because they're juggling a lot of things. And they do have staffers, but the staffers don't always know. Like, they're not investigators. They're not paralegals. But investigations like this can help. Surrey police are not looking into those allegations, which are alleged to have taken place at the Frogmore Cottage in Windsor. Multiple UK police forces are reviewing information contained within the millions of pages of files released over the past few weeks. On Wednesday, the Metropolitan Police said initial inquiries into these specific allegations have begun regarding protection officers following concerns from one unnamed officer that some turned a blind eye to Andrew's visits to Epstein's island, Little St. James. The protection officer speaking to LBC said, "I'm not suggesting they definitely witnessed any criminality from Andrew, but there was concern that certain members of the Royal Protection Team willfully turned a blind eye to what was happening on the island." And that's the thing. This is why I said, even with calling in the Clintons and other people who have Capitol Police patrols, Secret Service patrols, also call in their details. Because if people were so blatant to do these things and folks were willing to turn a blind eye, ask why. Because I'm old enough to remember when the Bush twins were sneaking out and doing some underage drinking, and they had a Secret Service detail, and everybody was like, "Oh, they're such wild girls. Oh, the Bushes are bad parents." And I'm like, these are not your average run-of-the-mill teenagers, and they have a Secret Service detail. Why were these grown folks allowing these girls to drink? So yes, bring them in, ask these questions. In a statement, the Met said protection officers are held to the same high standards of professional behavior as all police officers. At this time, we have not identified any wrongdoing by any protection officers. However, initial inquiries into those specific allegations have begun so we can establish the facts. As with any investigation, should any new allegations come to light, these will be assessed in the usual way. This includes any misconduct or criminal matters. On Tuesday, Essex Police said it was assessing information about private flights to and from Stansted Airport following information released as part of the document dump by the U.S. Department of Justice on January 30th. Former Prime Minister Gordon Brown claimed the files showed in graphic detail how pedophile financier Epstein was able to use the Essex-based airport to fly in girls from Latvia, Lithuania, and Russia. Once again, this is global. There are global entities that can step in. Stop giving up and going, "Oh, well, the Department of Justice here." The United States is not the only country on this planet. The United States is not the end all to be all. The United States is not the alpha and omega of the planet. You cannot make fun of the Karens that go on these vacations and expect everybody to maneuver the way they want the United States to maneuver. But you're acting as if the whole world is sitting there looking and letting the United States set the tempo and set the rules. Don't nobody even like us. Okay, we're not a likable teenage country. Okay, we're not. We're not at the cool kids table. Okay. We're in detention. Okay. We're in school suspension. Don't anybody giving us no invitations to nothing. Okay. The cool kids tried to give us a chance in Milan, and we screwed that up from the rooter to the tutor. A spokesperson for the Stansted Airport said the airport does not manage or have any visibility of passenger arrangements on privately operated aircraft, which is true. Um, Norfolk police confirmed the force is also reviewing documents brought to their attention, but said they had not yet received any allegations and were not currently conducting any investigation. Bedfordshire police are reportedly looking into Luton flights. On Wednesday, Chancellor Rachel Reeves added her voice to those calling on Andrew to speak about what he knows about the Epstein scandal, saying he owes it to the victims. After looking at his face, after being detained, on his birthday, that man is about to speak. Not to mention, he has had a very, very privileged life. And I know we don't know too much about him, but we do know how his brother got down with the get down and how his brother tends to get down. And this is a family that doesn't like to even put their own shoes on or tie their shoes or do things that we take for granted. He don't want to go to jail. He definitely don't want to see prison. And there is a difference between jail and prison, regardless of the country that you go to. Somebody who is accustomed to not just like you and I getting up and coming and going to the best of their ability, whenever they want, but jet setting, literally. Having a say in what they eat and what they drink, and having all these preferences that you're not going to get behind bars. And from reports coming in, they were treating him like a regular, schmegular common criminal. Coming from upolitics.com, after Pam Bondi says DOJ won't release more Epstein files, Congressman accused her of cover-up. Stop protecting pet predators. Yeah, because you done paid all that money for all that good plastic surgery, and you are aging the silicone in your face. Do you know how raggedy of a moral compass you have to have that you're aging silicone? A new Justice Department letter declaring it has released all records required under the Epstein Files Transparency Act is drawing sharp pushback from lawmakers who say critical documents remain hidden. In a letter to the House and Senate Judiciary Committees, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, let me remind you all that even during his confirmation hearings, Todd Blanche stated, when asked, that he would still be acting in the capacity of Donald John Trump Sr.'s personal attorney. Said the department had released all materials covered by the law. The department stated it provided all records, documents, communications, and investigative materials in the possession of the department that relate to 9 categories defined by the statute. The letter also said no records were withheld on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. But Representative Thomas Massie, Republican out of Kentucky, who co-wrote the transparency measure with Representative Ro Khanna, Democrat out of California, said the explanation falls short. Speaking Sunday on ABC's This Week, Massie said the DOJ wants to say they are done with this document production, but argued more records should be made public. And let's not forget, you need to stay on Bondi and Blanche's necks. Okay, they put over 400 DOJ attorneys on this case, and they claim that they can't release certain things because they've restarted or began new investigations due to the files. So start asking them, where's those prosecution lists? Where's the indictments? When are they holding these grand juries? And why aren't they working more closely with Congress regarding this, since they now have open investigations? See, y'all may have forgotten that little caveat that they put into motion last year to try to avoid releasing all of the records, but Tassie Farms did. The problem with that is the bill that Ro Khanna and I wrote says that they must release internal memos and notes and emails about their decisions on whether to prosecute or not prosecute, whether to investigate or not investigate, Massey said on the broadcast. Khanna was more blunt. In a post on X, he accused the department of purposely muddying the waters on who was a predator and who was mentioned in an email. He also criticized the inclusion of deceased celebrities in the release name list, writing, to have Janis Joplin, who died when Epstein was 17, in the same list as Larry Nassar with no clarification of how either was mentioned in the files is absurd. Right. Just sitting there going, oh, these people were mentioned in the files, because keep in mind, these files are a conglomerate of different document types. Now, if you want to, for the sake of appearing extremely transparent, you can go, you can put them into categories. Just like if you looked at when I put into my link tree the ICE facilities, and I kept telling people a lot of these ICE facilities perform a duality. And I broke it down into categories so that you could see, you could do that. You could say, just mentioned casually in conversation, list those people. But business associates, list those people. Friends and family, list those people, things like that. But they're intentionally not providing context, and they're redacting things in a way that for a lot of people, if you have not been following this case, you're not even going to have an inkling of what the context could plausibly be. He added, release the files, stop protecting predators, redact only the survivors' names. The department emphasized that appearing in the documents does not imply wrongdoing. All three men have previously denied involvement in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. Earlier this month, Blanche said some materials were withheld due to privacy and investigative concerns, including personal medical files, graphic depictions of child abuse, or other material that would jeopardize investigations, according to reporting by the BBC. Here's the thing. There are survivors that have already given testimonies in written books and done extensive public interviews where they've talked about the medical information that's already in there, and they've already said release it. And even if you're not going to release it to the public on the site that it's there, release it to the victims. Release it to the attorneys of the victims. And once again, the DOJ on large did not consult with victims, did not confirm who family members and close friends and confidants and therapists were of the victims to even properly redact information. And that's been confirmed by the witnesses and their legal representations multiple times over. Epstein files allegations may amount to crimes against humanity, UN experts. A panel of United Nations experts suggested that allegations detailed in the millions of documents released, well, actually millions of pages. It's millions of pages that were released recently, not millions of documents, because documents can be multiple pages. This was millions of pages, let's be clear. Released by the Justice Department, the DOJ, connecting to its probe of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein could amount to some of the most serious crimes under international law. What do I keep telling y'all? The group of experts appointed by the UN Human Rights Council said in a statement released Monday that the files signal the existence of a global criminal enterprise that engaged in the systematic and large-scale sexual abuse, trafficking, and exploitation of women and girls. And this is when you need to start writing not just the ambassador from the United States, but other ambassadors of the UN. These crimes were committed against the backdrop of supremacist beliefs, racism, corruption, extreme misogyny, and the commodification and dehumanization of women and girls from different parts of the world, they said. They ate with that one. So grave is the scale, nature, systematic character, and transnational reach of these atrocities against women and girls that a number of them may reasonably meet the legal threshold of crimes against humanity, the panel added. It's getting sticky. Crimes against humanity are defined under international law as when certain acts are committed as part of widespread and systematic attack directed against any civilian population. These acts, which include rape, sexual slavery, and murder, among other offenses, differ from war crimes in that they do not require armed conflict and can occur in peaceful times, according to the International Committee of the Red Cross. The UN panel warned that some accusations contained in the documents released by the DOJ may meet that threshold. All the allegations contained in the Epstein files are egregious in nature and require independent, thorough, and impartial investigation, as well as inquiries to determine how such crimes could have taken place for so long, they wrote. The Trump administration has been criticized for its handling of the investigation into Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, with critics arguing it has not been transparent in the batches of documents released. Lawmakers who reviewed the unredacted Epstein files at the DOJ office over the past week reported heavy, unnecessary redactions in what they saw. Trump officials have maintained the redactions are meant to ensure victims' identities are kept private. The UN panel echoed concerns about botched redactions that expose victims' information in previous disclosures, a blunder the Trump administration blamed on technical or human error when it announced it had taken down the documents and images. The grave errors in the release process underscore the urgent need for victim-centered standard operating procedures for disclosure and redaction so that no victim suffers further harm, they wrote. Though not naming him directly, the experts also pushed back on President Trump Sr.'s suggestion that the country should move on from Epstein. Move on these nuts. They called on the administration to end impunity for perpetrators and pursue criminal probes where warranted. I want y'all to think about something. When Trump believes that he has a leg to stand on, when he has convinced himself or other people have convinced him that he is innocent, he will fight for years and years and years and years and years regarding it. Just like this whole stolen election thing, he is still trying to drum that up. He still wants prosecutions on that. He wants his political rivals prosecuted and persecuted. But with this, he wants us to just forget about it. Something that he campaigned on, something that he made sure was a big talking point at the very beginning of his current administration. But see, his previous smoke and mirrors tactics did not work this time around. And it's because he doesn't know what room to walk into in order to read it. And what do I mean by that? Nobody took into account that not everybody in MAGA or the Republican Party is stupid. It is chock full of Ivy League educated elites that cosplay stupid. Number one. Number two, the GOP, specifically the MAGA faction of the GOP, was trying to bounce back from a scandal. They had been exposed for being paid to say certain talking points. And I myself had done an expose on it because somebody trying to be funny and thought that they were going to be a headache to me took my public email and signed me up for all of this Trump stuff. Like, oh, we'll get her, we'll teach her, she'll become one of ours, we'll bombard her with all this information. No, I was privy to, yes, they do send out literal scripts. This is why they sound alike. So there were a lot of content creators that, to keep their followings, to keep their credibility, to keep their endorsement deals, they wanted cold hard facts. And the White House at that time had opened up press areas to influencers and content creators to get certain narratives out to the masses. And when those content creators showed up and got those initial binders and was like, oh, this is information we already know, didn't go too well. And a lot of those content creators had to make shifts. And this is also during a time where a lot of the most notable girly conservative content creators / influencers were starting to argue over on Twitter. And they started to expose themselves as being fakes, as being frauds, and all of this. So yeah, it's a slippery slope downhill. But failure by governments to effectively investigate and prosecute those responsible for these crimes, including by complicity or acquiescence, where jurisdiction exists, risk undermining legal frameworks aimed at preventing and responding to violence against women and girls, the group said. It is imperative that governments act decisively to hold perpetrators accountable, the panel continued. No one is too wealthy or too powerful to be above the law, but they can be too white. And that is the biggest problem. Okay. Just feels like every time I make a dent in these updates, more comes up. DOJ's Epstein files release sparks chaos, leaving a critical flaw exposed as public disapproval skyrockets. The DOJ's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files is really stirring things up, with a new poll revealing that more than half of Americans believe President Trump Sr. is trying to cover up crimes related to the convicted sex offender, as reported by The Hill. This is a pretty significant finding, and it definitely highlights the public's concern over the transparency of the whole situation. According to a recent Economist / YouGov poll, a whopping 53% of people surveyed think President Trump Sr. is actively trying to cover up Epstein's crimes and his own. And quite honestly, this is going to sound strange to a lot of people unless you really paid attention to the Trump family over the years. Trump doesn't care about how bad somebody else looks. He doesn't even care how bad his own family looks. Okay. I think he's embarrassed, and not so much by the crimes, because this is a man who said that E. Jean Carroll was thrilled, I'm paraphrasing, to be raped by him. Okay. This is somebody who said out loud proudly that he could grab women by the Cuda biscuit. This is someone who has said some egregious things about walking in on minors at teen beauty pageants. I think it's more he was clamoring for a seat at the inner sanctum of Epstein, and he wasn't getting it. I think that there's some other truths that would be exposed in those files that have nothing to do with abuse that he's concerned about. Because he is so depraved and so dilapidated cranially that a lot of the things that he doesn't see as criminal. And he does not care about protecting anybody. He really, truly doesn't. Because if he really felt that these things were so egregious, he would have never talked about these files on the campaign trail, and he would be using them for leverage right now against so many people. He wouldn't have been stalled. There wouldn't have been so many government shutdown, all of these things. Like, On the other hand, 29% of respondents don't share that belief. It's also interesting to note that exactly half of those polls suspect President Donald Trump Sr. was involved in Epstein's illicit activities, while 30% think he wasn't because they see themselves in him. They're doing the same things, and they're kind of rooting that he gets away with it, because these are people who live vicariously through those in a different tax bracket as them. Because they vote in the hopes of waking up with more zeros in their bank account. And they're already looking at what they get away with on the level that they're on. So they're dreaming of getting away with more. Yeah, as part of those conversations we need to finally have. We're seeing a clear party line split here, which isn't too surprising. For example, 91% of Democrats surveyed said they believe Donald Trump Sr. is attempting to cover up compared to just 13% of Republicans. Similarly, 86% of Democrats think he was involved in Epstein's activities, while 67% of Republicans believe he wasn't. And that is pathetic. That is pathetic that you are allowing your morality to be partisan. It's not about decency, it's not about ethics. It's just about still trying to look better than the other person. This country is so sickeningly competitive. Alrighty, we will stop here and yeah, there's so much each day and I don't want to overwhelm people. We will pick back up tomorrow. So, as always, thank you for joining me for this special edition of Tazisms. I will see you for yet another special edition, weekend edition, and hopefully we will get a little further caught up. There's so much. I'm not laughing because I think this is funny. It's a nervous laugh, and there's just a lot to take in. Also, if you want more information regarding one particular victim's experience around Andrew, Kellen, Epstein, and Maxwell, you can go to the playlist Nobody's Girl, and as we go through and get caught up with the memoir from Virginia Roberts Giuffre. Other than that, I will see you tomorrow. Enjoy your evening.